أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وآله الطيبين الطاهرين. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Inshallah, we pray after the praise of Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that you all are well. And today we'll be holding our Thursday night program. And inshallah, tonight we'll have our respected Sheikh Shafiq Hudda addressing today's majlis. In order to start this Thursday night program, I'll request my dear brother Yusuf Rahman, to start with the recitation of a short surah before the recitation of Surah Yasin. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam wa rahmatullah.
Okay, 1 second, just give me 1 second.
No problem.
Okay, sorry.
No problem. Take your time.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. والشمس وضحاها والقمر إذا تلاها والنهار إذا جلاها والليل إذا يغشاها والسماء وما بناها والأرض وما طحاها ونفس وما سواها فألهمها فجورها وتقواها ونفس وما سواها فألهمها فجورها وتقواها قد أفلح من زكاها وقد خاب من دساها كذبت ثمود بطغواها إذ انبعث أشقاها فقال لهم رسول الله ناقة الله وسقياها فكذبوهم فعقروها فدمدم عليهم ربهم بذنبهم فسواها ولا يخاف عقباها. صدق الله العلي العظيم.
Ahsan, Jazakallah. Ahsan. This was the recitation of Surah Shams by our dear brother Yusuf Rahman. And now, in order to start with the recitation of Surah Yasin, I'll request my dear brothers Ilyas Alizi and brother Miqdad Hudda. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
السلام عليكم.
وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. ياسين والقرآن الحكيم إنك لمن المرسلين على صراط مستقيم تنزيل العزيز الرحيم لتنذر قوما ما أنذر آباؤهم فهم غافلون لقد حق القول على أكثرهم فهم لا يؤمنون إنا جعلنا في أعناقهم أغلالا فهي إلى الأذقان فهم مقمحون وجعلنا من بين أيديهم سدا ومن خلفهم سدا فأغشيناهم فهم لا يبصرون وسواء عليهم أأنذرتهم أم لم تنذرهم لا يؤمنون إنما تنذر من اتبع الذكر وخشي الرحمن بالغيب فبشره بمغفرة وأجر كريم إنا نحن نحيي الموتى ونكتب ما قدموا وآثارهم وكل شيء أحصيناه في إمام مبين واضرب لهم مثلا أصحاب القرية إذ جاءها المرسلون إذ أرسلنا إليهم اثنين فكذبوهما فعززنا بثالث فقالوا إنا إليكم مرسلون قالوا ما أنتم إلا بشر مثلنا وما أنزل الرحمن من شيء إن أنتم إلا تكذبون قالوا ربنا يعلم إنا إليكم لمرسلون وما علينا إلا البلاغ المبين قالوا إنا تطيرنا بكم لئن لم تنتهوا لنرجمنكم وليمسنكم منا عذاب أليم قالوا طائركم معكم أئن ذكرتم بل أنتم قوم مسرفون وجاء من أقصى المدينة رجل يسعى قال يا قوم اتبعوا المرسلين اتبعوا من لا يسألكم أجرا وهم مهتدون وما لي لا أعبد الذي فطرني وإليه ترجعون أأتخذ من دونه آلهة إن يردني الرحمن بضر لا تغن عني شفاعتهم شيئا ولا ينقذون إني إذا لفي ضلال مبين إني آمنت بربكم فاسمعون قيل ادخل الجنة قال يا ليت قومي يعلمون بما غفر لي ربي وجعلني من المكرمين وما أنزلنا على قومه من بعده من جند من السماء وما كنا منزلين إن كانت إلا صيحة واحدة فإذا هم خامدون يا حسرة على العباد ما يأتيهم من رسول إلا كانوا به يستهزئون ألم يروا كم أهلكنا قبلهم من القرون أنهم إليهم لا يرجعون وإن كل لما جميع لدينا محضرون وآية لهم الأرض الميتة أحييناها وأخرجنا منها حبا فمنه يأكلون وجعلنا فيها جنات من نخيل وعناب وفجرنا فيها من العيون ليأكلوا من ثمره وما عملته أيديهم أفلا يشكرون سبحان الذي خلق الأزواج كلها ما تنبت الأرض ومن أنفسهم ومما لا يعلمون وآية لهم الليل نسلخ منه النهار فإذا هم مظلمون والشمس تجري لمستقر لها ذلك تقدير العزيز العليم والقمر قدرناه منازل حتى عاد كالعرجون القديم لا الشمس ينبغي لها أن تدرك القمر ولا الليل سابق النهار وكل في فلك يسبحون وآية لهم أنا حملنا ذريتهم في الفلك المشحون صدق الله العلي العظيم.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وخلقنا لهم من مثله ما يركبون وإن نشأ نغرقهم فلا صريخ لهم ولا هم ينقذون إلا رحمة منا ومتاع إلى حين وإذا قيل لهم واتقوا ما بين أيديكم وما خلفكم لعلكم ترحمون وما تأتيهم من آيات ربهم إلا كانوا عنها معرضين وإذا قيل لهم أنفقوا مما رزقكم الله قال الذين كفروا للذين آمنوا أنطعم من لو يشاء الله أطعمه إن أنتم إلا في ضلال مبين ويقولون متى هذا الوعد إن كنتم صادقين ما ينظرون إلا صيحة واحدة تأخذهم وهم يخصمون فلا يستطيعون توصية ولا إلى أهلهم يرجعون ونفخ في الصور فإذا هم من الأجداث إلى ربهم ينسلون قالوا يا ويلنا من بعثنا من مرقدنا هذا ما وعد الرحمن وصدق المرسلون إن كانت إلا صيحة واحدة فإذا هم جميع لدينا محضرون فاليوم لا تظلم نفس شيئا ولا تجزون إلا ما كنتم تعملون إن أصحاب الجنة اليوم في شغل فاكهون هم وأزواجهم في ظلال على الأرائك متكئون لهم فيها فاكهة ولهم ما يدعون سلام قولا من رب رحيم وامتازوا اليوم أيها المجرمون ألم أعهد إليكم يا بني آدم ألا تعبدوا الشيطان إنه لكم عدو مبين وأن اعبدوني هذا صراط مستقيم ولقد أضل منكم جبلا كثيرا أفلا أفلا أفلم تكونوا تعقلون هذه جهنم التي كنتم توعدون اصلوها اليوم بما كنتم تكفرون اليوم نختم على أفواههم وتكلمنا أيديهم وتشهد أرجلهم بما كانوا يكسبون ولو نشاء لتمسنا على أعينهم فاستبقوا الصراط فأنى يبصرون ولو نشاء لمسخناهم على مكانتهم فما استطاعوا مضيا ولا يرجعون ومن نؤمره ننكشه في الخلق أفلا يعقلون وما علمناه الشعر وما ينبغي له إن هو إلا ذكر وقرآن مبين لينذر من كان حيا ويحق القول على الكافرين أولم يروا أنا خلقنا لهم مما عملت أيدينا أنعاما فهم لها مالكون وذللناها لهم فمنها ركوبهم ومنها يأكلون ولهم فيها منافع ومشارب أفلا يشكرون واتخذوا من دون الله آلهة لعلهم ينصرون لا يستطيعون نصرهم وهم لهم جند محضرون فلا يحزنك قولهم إنا نعلم ما يسرون وما يعلنون أولم يرى الإنسان أنا خلقناهم من نطفة فإذا هو خصيم مبين وضرب لنا مثلا ونسي خلقه قال من يحيي العظام وهي رميم قل يحييها الذي أنشأها أول مرة وهو بكل خلق عليم الذي جعل لكم من الشجر الأخضر نارا فإذا أنتم منه توقدون أوليس الذي خلق السماوات والأرض بقادر على أن يخلق مثلهم بلى وهو الخلاق العليم إنما أمره إذا أراد شيئا أن يقول له كن فيكون فسبحان الذي بيده ملكوت كل شيء وإليه ترجعون صدق الله العلي العظيم.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم ولعن أهلك أعداءهم أجمعين. Alhamdulillah, we had the recitation of the word of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on this night by our dear brothers, Brother Yusuf Rahman, Brother Ilyas Arizi, and Brother Miqdad Hudda. And we'll be proceeding with the recitation of Dua al-Kumail by our dear brothers, Brother Miqdad Hudda, who will be reciting a short part in the beginning, and then followed by Brother Yusuf Rahman, and then Brother Ali Mahboubi. So I'll be requesting for them to, inshallah, start with the recitation of Dua al-Kumail. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم اللهم إني أسألك برحمتك التي وسعت كل شيء وبقوتك التي قهرت بها كل شيء وخضع لها كل شيء وذل لها كل شيء وبجبروتك التي غلبت بها كل شيء وبعزتك التي لا يقوم لها شيء وبعظمتك التي ملأت كل شيء وبسلطانك الذي على كل شيء وبوجهك الباقي بعد فناء كل شيء وبأسمائك التي ملأت أركان كل شيء وبعلمك الذي أحاط بكل شيء وبنور وجهك الذي أضاء له كل شيء يا نور يا قدوس يا نور يا قدوس يا نور يا قدوس يا أول الأولين ويا آخر الآخرين اللهم اغفر لي الذنوب التي تحت كل اسم اللهم اغفر لي الذنوب التي تنزل النكم اللهم اغفر لي الذنوب التي تغير النعم
السلام عليكم. اللهم اغفر لي الذنوب التي بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اللهم اغفر لي الذنوب التي تغير النعم. اللهم اغفر لي الذنوب التي تحت اللهم اغفر لي الذنوب التي تحبس الدعاء. اللهم اغفر لي الذنوب التي تقطع الرجاء. اللهم اغفر لي الذنوب التي تنزل البلاء. اللهم اغفر لي اللهم اغفر لي كل ذنب أذنبت وكل خطيئة أخطأتها. اللهم إني أتقرب إليك بذكرك واستشفع بك إلى نفسك، وأسألك بجودك أن تدنيني من قربك، وأن توزعني شكرك، وأن تلهمني ذكرك. اللهم إني أسألك أسفل خازٍ متذلل خاشع، أن تسامحني وترحمني وتجعلني بقسمك راضيا قانعا، وفي جميع الأحوال متوازيا. اللهم وأسألك سؤال من اشتدت فاقته وانزل بك عند الشدائد هاجته وعزم فيما عندك رغبته. اللهم أزم سلطانك وعلى مكانك وخفي مكرك وزهر أمرك وغلب قهرك وجرت قدرتك، ولا يمكن الفرار من حكومتك. اللهم لا أجد لذنوب غافرا، ولا لقبائه ساترا، ولا لشيء من عملي القبيح بالحسن مبدلا غيرك. لا إله إلا أنت سبحانك وبحمدك. ظلمت نفسي ظلمت نفسي ظلمت نفسي وتجرعت بجهل وسكنت إلى قديم ذكرك لي ومنك علي. اللهم مولاي كم من قبيح سترته، وكم من فادهم من البلاء أقلته، وكم من عثار وقيته، وكم من مكروه نفعته، وكم من ثناء جميل لست أحلى له نشرته. اللهم أزم بلائي وافرت بسوحاني وقسرت بأعمالي وقعدت بأغلالي وهبسني النفع بعد أملي وخدعتني الدنيا بغرورها ونفسي بجناياتها ومثالي يا سيدي. فأسألك بعزتك ألا يحجبنك الدعاء سوء أمالي وفعالي، ولا تفزحني بخفي ما اطلعت عليه من سري، ولا تعاجلني بالعقوبة على ما عملته في خلوات من سوء فعلي وإساءتي ودوام تفريط وجهالتي وكسرة شهواتي وغفلتي. وكن اللهم بعزتك لي في كل الأحوال رؤوفا، وعلي في جميع الأمور يتوفا. إلهي وربي من لي غيرك، أسأله كشف ذري والنظر في أمري. إلهي ومولاي أجريت علي حكما اتبعت فيه هوى نفسي، ولم أحترس فيه من تزيين عدوي فغرني بما أهوى، وأسأله على ذلك القضاء فتجاوزت بما جرى علي من ذلك بعد حدودك، وخالفت بعد أوامرك. فلك الحمد علي في جميع ذلك، ولا حجة لي فيما جرى علي فيه قضاؤك، وألزمني حكمك وبلاؤك. وقد أتيتك يا إلهي بعد تقصيري وإسرافي على نفسي، معتذرا نادما منكسرا مستقيلا. مستغفرا منيبا مقرا مذعنا معترفا لا أجد مفرا مما كان مني ولا مفزعا أتوجه إليه في أمري غير قبولك عذري ودخالك إياي في ساعة من رحمتك اللهم فاقبل عذري وارحم شدة زري وفكني من شدي وثاقي يا رب ارحم زعف بدني ورقة جلدي ودقة عزمي يا من بدا خلقي وذكري وتربيتي وبري وتغذيتي هبني لابتداء كرمك وسالف برك بي يا إلهي وسيدي وربي أتراك موزب بنارك بعد توحيدك وبعد من توى عليه قلبي من معرفتك ولا هجابه لساني من ذكرك واعتقده ضميري من حبك وبعد صدق اعترافي ودعائي خازيا لربوبيتك هيهات أنت أكرم من أن تزيئ من ربيت أو تباعد من أدنيت أو تشرد من آويت أو تسلم إلى البلاء من كفيت ورحمت وليت شعري يا سيدي وإلهي ومولاي تسلط النار على وجوه خرت ليزامتك ساجدا وعلى ألسن نطقت بتوحيدك صادقا وبشكرك مادها وعلى قلوب اعترفت بإلهيتك محققا وعلى زمائر هوت من العلم بك حتى صارت خاشعة وعلى جوارها سات إلى أوطان تعبدك طائعة وأشارت باستغفارك مزنا ما هكذا ظنوا بك ولا أخبرنا بفضلك أنك يا كريم يا رب وأنت تعلم ضعفي قليل من بلاء الدنيا وعقوباتها وما يجري فيها من المكاره على أهلها على أن ذلك بلاء ومكروه قليل مكثور يسير بقاء قصير مدة فكيف احتمالي لبلاء الآخرة وجليل وقوع المكاره فيها وهو بلاء تطول مدته ويدوم مقامه ولا يخفف عن أهله لأنهم لا يكون إلا عن غضبك وانتقامك وسخطك وهذا ما لا تقوم له السماوات والأرض يا سيدي فكيف لي وأنا عبدك الضعيف ذليل الحقير المسكين المستكين يا إلهي وربي وسيدي ومولاي ليأي الأمور إليك أشكو ولما منها أدج وأبكي لأليم العذاب وشدته أم لطول بلائي ومدته فلئن سيرتني للعقوبة مع أعدائك وجمعت بيني وبين أحبائك وفرقت بيني وبين أحبائك وأوليائك فهبني يا إلهي وسيدي ومولاي وربي صبرت على عذابك فكيف أصبر على فراقك وهبني صبرت على هر نارك فكيف أصبر عن النظر إلى كرامتك أم كيف أسكن في النار ورجاء يفوك فبعزتك يا سيدي ومولاي أقسم صادقا لئن تركتني ناطقا لأذجن إليك بين أهل هذا جيج الآملين ولا أصرخن إليك صراخ المستصرخين ولا أبكين عليك بكاء الفاقدين ولا أنادينك أين كنت يا ولي المؤمنين يا غاية آمال العارفين يا غياث المستغيثين يا غياث المستغيثين يا غياث المستغيثين سلام.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. ويا حبيب قلوب الصادقين ويا إله العالمين أفتراك سبحانك يا إلهي وبحمدك تسمع فيها صوت عبد مسلم سجن فيها بمخالفته وذاق طعم عذابها بمعصيته وهبس بين أطباقها بجرمه وجريرته وهو يضج إليك ضجيج مؤمل لرحمتك ويناديك بلسان أهل توحيدك ويتوسل إليك بربوبيتك يا مولاي فكيف يبقى في العذاب وهو يرجو ما سلف من حلمك ورأفتك أم كيف تؤلمه النار وهو يأمل فضلك ورحمتك أم كيف يحرقه لهيبها وأنت تسمع صوته وترى مكانه أم كيف يشتمل عليه زفيرها وأنت تعلم ضعفه أم كيف يتقلقل بين أطباقها وأنت تعلم صدقه أم كيف تزجره زبانيتها وهو يناديك يا ربه أم كيف يرجو فضلك في عتقه منها فتتركه فيها هيهات ما ذلك ظن بك ولا المعروف من فضلك ولا مشبه لما عملت به الموحدين من برك وإحسانك فباليقين أقطع لولا ما حكمت به من تعذيب جاهديك وقضيت به من إخلاد معانديك لجعلت النار كلها بردا وسلاما وما كان لأحد فيها مقرا ولا مقاما لكنك تقدست أسماؤك أقسمت أن تملها من الكافرين من الجنة والناس أجمعين وأن تخلد فيها المعاندين وأن تجل ثناؤك قلت مبتدئا وتطولت بالإنعام متكرما أفمن كان مؤمنا كمن كان فاسقا لا يستوون إلهي وسيدي فأسألك بالقدرة التي قدرتها وبالقضية التي حكمتها وهكمتها وغلبت من عليه أجريتها أن تهب لي في هذه الليلة وفي هذه الساعة كل جرم أجرمته وكل ذنب أذنبت وكل قبيح أسررت وكل جهل عملت كتمته أو أعلنت أخفيته أو أظهرت وكل سيئة أمرت بإثباتها الكرام الكاتبين الذين وكلتهم بحفظ ما يكون مني وجعلتهم شهودا علي مع جواره وكنت أنت الرقيب علي من ورائهم والشاهد لما خفي عنهم وبرحمتك أغفيت وبفضلك سترت وأن توفر حظي من كل خير تنزل أو إحسان تفضله، أو بر تنشره، أو رزق تبسطه، أو ذنب تغفره، أو خطأ تستره. يا ربي يا ربي يا رب، يا ربي يا ربي يا رب، يا ربي يا ربي يا رب، إلهي وسيدي ومولاي ومالك رقي، يا من بيده ناصيتي، يا عليما بذري ومسكنتي، يا خبيرا بفقري وفاقتي، يا ربي يا ربي يا رب، يا ربي يا ربي يا رب، يا ربي يا ربي يا رب، أسألك بحقك وقدسك وأعظم صفاتك وأسمائك أن تجعل أوقاتي من الليل والنهار بذكرك معمورة، وبخدمتك موصولة، وأعمالي عندك مقبولة، حتى تكون أعمالي وأورادي كلها بردا واحدا، وهالي في خدمتك سرمدا. يا سيدي يا من عليه معولي، يا من إليه شكوت أحوالي، يا ربي يا ربي يا رب، يا ربي يا ربي يا رب، يا ربي يا ربي يا رب، قو على خدمتك جوارحي، واشدد على العزيمة جوانه، وهب لي الجد في خشيتك، والدوام في الاتصال بخدمتك، حتى أصرح إليك في ميادين السابقين، وأسرع إليك في البارزين، وأشتاق إلى قربك في المشتاقين، وأدنو منك دنو المخلصين، وأخافك مخافة الموقنين، وأجتمع في جوارك مع المؤمنين. اللهم ومن أرادني بسوء فأرد، ومن كادني فكد، واجعلني من أحسن عبيدك نصيبا عندك، وأقربهم منزلة منك، وأخصهم زلفة لديك، فإنه لا ينال ذلك إلا بفضلك، وجد لي بجودك، واعطف علي بمجدك، واحفظني برحمتك، واجعل لساني بذكرك لهجا، وقلبي بحبك متيما، ومن علي بحسن إجابتك، وأقلني عثرتي، واغفر زلتي، فإنك قضيت على عبادك بعبادتك، وأمرتهم بدعائك، وضمنت لهم الإجابة. فإليك يا ربي نصبت وجهي، وإليك يا ربي مددت يدي، فبعزتك استجب لي دعائي، وبلغني مناي، ولا تقطع من فضلك رجاي، واكفني شر الجن والإنس من أعدائي. يا سريع الرضا، يا سريع الرضا، يا سريع الرضا، اغفر لمن لا يملك إلا الدعاء، فإنك فعال لما تشاء، يا من اسمه الدواء، وذكره شفاء، وطاعته غنى. ارحم من رأس ماله رجا، وسلاهه البكاء، يا سابغ النعم، يا دافع انتقام، يا نور المستوحشين في الظلام، يا عالما لا يعلم، صل على محمد وآل محمد، وافعل بما أنت أهله. وصلى الله على رسوله والأئمة الميامين من آله، وسلم تسليما كثيرا كثيرا. الفاتحة.
صلوا على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah, dear brothers and sisters. Alhamdulillah, we were able to hold and start this gathering with the recitation of Surah Yasin and the recitation of the holy word of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And followed after that was the recitation of Dua Kumail, and this was all done by our young brothers. May Allah have mercy, special mercy on them, and inshallah their respected families and all the respected members of the community. For the acceptance of our dua, for the acceptance of the acts of worship, please recite a salawat on Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad. Alhamdulillah, we are blessed that we will have our respected Sheikh Shafiq Hudda who will be addressing today's majlis. Before I request our respected Sheikh, if I can request you all, as indeed that there are several mu'mineen, several believers who have requested for du'as, for prayers. If we can inshallah recite the ayah Karima 5 times for those who are, for the fulfillment of the legitimate desires of all the believers, for those who are sick amongst the community, for their complete and speedy recovery, for those who are away from their homes, for their safe return back to their home, for the protection and the well-being of our scholars, our maraji, our fellow community members, and for the hastening of the advent of al-Hujjah, and for us being considered amongst as ashab, as ansar, as awan. Let us recite the ayah karima 5 times. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. أمن يجيب المضطر إذا دعاه ويكشف السوء 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 اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل. And now, without any further ado, I'd like to request our respected Sheikh Shafiq Hudda to address today's majlis. صلوا على محمد وآل محمد.
أعوذ بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين خالق السماوات والأرض إلها واحدا أحدا صمدا لم يتخذ صاحبة ولا ولدا والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين خاتم النبيين رحمة للعالمين طه وياسين بالقاسم محمد اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آله الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المظلومين المنتجبين ورحمة الله على محبيهم ولعنة الله على أعدائهم أجمعين من يومنا هذا إلى يوم الدين. أما بعد، فقد قال الله سبحانه وتبارك في كتابه الحكيم وفرقانه المجيد وقوله الحق. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. وما أرسلناك إلا مبشرا ونذيرا. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. Respected Sayyid Taha, my sisters, my brothers, my youngsters, my elders, Assalamu alaikum jami'an wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. May the peace and blessings of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala be upon all of you and all of your families. I am indeed grateful for having this opportunity once again to address the respected mu'mineen and to share a few words and a few thoughts in this month of Rabi al-Awwal. And one of the things that I thought that since we last week had celebrated the birth anniversary of the Holy Prophet, and we are continuing this blessed month of Rabi al-Awwal, the month in which the Holy Prophet's wilada is, the month in which Imam Jafar Sadiq's wilada is, their birth anniversaries, alayhimus salam, peace be upon them all. I thought it would be a good idea to, in continuation of this subject matter, to talk about some of those who are good followers of the Holy Prophet of Islam, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Some of the companions, and some of you may recall, maybe I'm testing your memory a bit too much, but we are insan, we are nasyan. And of course, our nature, our second nature is to forget. And so we forget. But a significant amount of time ago, way before this pandemic started, and I pray that each and every one of you, inshallah, are staying safe, will be inshallah protected by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and the shadow and the shade of Ahlul Bayt alayhim assalam, our community, our elders, our youngsters, our sisters, our brothers. Inshallah, for all of you, I pray for your safety and security, inshallah, for our entire community, both locally, domestically, nationally, and internationally as well. And so, some time ago, I had started a series on some of the companions of the Holy Prophet of Islam, some of the noble companions that, of course, were the vanguards, the protectors, and the spreaders of Islam, authentic Islam, and the true message of Muhammad and Ali Muhammad. And often there is concern, if you want to call it that, or there is an accusation on the Shia that, oh, you don't respect the companions, you don't treat them well, you don't give them, ihtaram and respect and what have you. And I always say that, if somebody is worthy of being a companion, we will always give them respect and dignity. And then, of course, we will mention them in our majalis and our lectures. When somebody is a companion of the Holy Prophet and they have remained loyal to the Holy Prophet and to the message of Islam, we give our lives for them. Nobody can say that we are against companions, that we don't respect the Sahabi and what have you. No, this is absolutely untrue. We have the highest of love and companions, love and compassion in our hearts for the companions, who were truly loyal. The difference is that the definition of companion, if you look at some of the books of the non-Shia, some of the Muslims' books and writings, anybody who just saw the Prophet is considered or regarded as a Sahabi. Somebody who just might have said Salaam alaikum to the Prophet, all of a sudden they are a Sahabi. When you talk about somebody who's a companion, there's a certain level, a certain degree, and not everybody can be called a companion simply because they just said salam to the Prophet or they saw the Prophet, or some have actually gone to the extent of saying that those who were just alive in the time of the Prophet could be considered as Sahabi. And this is something that as Jafari we don't fully accept. So somebody who is a companion, who is regarded as a Sahabi, is somebody who actually spent time with the Prophet, who learned from the Prophet, and who benefited and spread the message of Islam. First of all, applying the message. One of the things that we understand, it's not enough, is just to spread the message and we become negligent of ourselves. We can become complacent within ourselves. No, so we don't want to do this. We are actually supporting the message of the Prophet and applying it in our own lives. So it's not just enough for us to talk about it or spread it, but in our own lives, we have to also apply it. So in continuing this series, and as I said, I had done this more than 2 years ago. So it's not something that was too recent. There's not something that is recent. And those of you who might have a good recollection or memory might remember that I had talked about Abu Dhar at that time. And Abu Dhar had spoken about in my very first discussion. Like I said, it was a number of years ago. And maybe at a later state, I might come back and revisit Abu Dhar. But in the meantime, I want to go to some other companions. And there are two people I want to talk about today. One was a companion of the Holy Prophet, actually alive in his time. And the second, which might be a little bit more surprising to my sisters and brothers, especially my elders, was a lady who came a few centuries after the Prophet, but was a die-hard proponent and a follower of the message of the Holy Prophet. And one of the reasons why I selected the companions, or those who were close or fulfilling the ideology of the Prophet, was because when we talk about the Ahlul Bayt and the Aimma alayhim as-salam, peace be upon them all, some people have, or some mu'mineen have, I don't want to call it an objection, but they have a point or a concern or basically a retort, if you want to call it that. And I'm trying to use my words carefully. They have an example to say that, well, we can't really follow the Ahlul Bayt fully because they were ma'asum, they were infallible. They might have been, the son, the daughter, the brother, the sister, the father or the mother of one of the Masumin. And as a result, we cannot fully follow them. And so sometimes people become disheartened that, well, we can't reach that level, so what do we do? Well, one of the things to keep in mind is when the Prophet spoke about companions, his companions, and those loyal followers, we see a lot of respect the Prophet gave them. When we look at Imam Hassan's companions, we look at Imam Hussein's companions, we look at the companions of Amir al-Mu'mineen, there were some very, very loyal companions. There were some very loyal people who were close to the Ahlul Bayt, who themselves were not infallible, who themselves were not ma'soom, who were not the father, the son, or the brother, or the sister of one of the ma'soomeen, alayhim assalam. They would have been an ordinary person like you and I. But they developed their iman, their taqwa, their asceticism to reach a level where they were so high that they became themselves examples for us to follow. And when I spoke about Abu Dharr in those previous discussions a number of years ago, I mean, mashallah, if we would reach the level of Abu Dharr, if we could become Salman or Miqdad or Ammar or Malik Ashtar, or Habib ibn Madahir, alhamdulillah, we have achieved something. So don't be disheartened that, okay, they were Ma'asumin, had a special lutf from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. There were other people who actually were not even brought up or born in a Muslim family. One of the things that, of course, we should be grateful for, but at the same time, this is not our license to Jannah. It's not our passport to heaven. And that is that we have happened to, at least many of us who are watching or listening to tonight's discussion on this Shab-e Jummah, the blessed night, the most blessed night of the entire week. Many of us have been born into a Muslim family, have come into a Shia family. So we don't have anything to really, struggle for when it came to Aqidah, faith, and trying to better ourselves or change our ways or change our path. But when the issue of changing our ways and our path, that is very important. That's coming. If we know we're on the right path, then we have to fulfill it. But the important thing to remember, my sisters and brothers, is that we're not Muslims just because our mother and father are Muslims. We are not following Ahlul Bayt just because our parents were followers of Ahlul Bayt. You just heard in the recitation of Surah Yasin, whatever our Abba and Ajdad had done, it may not have necessarily been right. Of course, in our case, inshallah, yes, it is the right way. But just because they did something and we inherited it, this is not the right reason to follow Islam. We have to think and do tadabbur and tafakkur, reflection, pondering, thinking about, concentrating on what we are doing and why we are here, and being able to understand why are we Muslims. That if somebody came and asked us a question, why are you Muslim? Because on the day of judgment, the Malaika will ask us, the angels will ask us, why are you Muslim? Was it just because your mom and dad were Muslim? Is that the reason? That's not going to be an acceptable answer. Please keep that in mind. You have to struggle and try for it. So one of the things that is commendable is when somebody who is not a Muslim, born in a Muslim household, came to Islam and came to the Ahlul Bayt alayhim assalam, peace be upon them. This is when one's status increases. But that doesn't mean that those of us who were born might not get a reward. Inshallah, we will. But the important thing to remember, sisters and brothers, is that we have to make sure we struggle on the path. We struggle to understand why we are Muslims. And if we believe in our heart that this is the right path, which of course, inshallah, we know it is, inna ad-deena inda Allahi al-Islam, that the way in the eyes of Allah, the path in the eyes of Allah is Islam, then we have to be able to justify it in ourselves, explain it in our own hearts. And if somebody was to confront us with the question, why are you Muslim? We will be able to answer it. Not just because Papa and Mommy were Muslim, not just because Amma and Abba were Muslim. No, that is not acceptable. So I wanted to take a look at, like I said, two people today, depending on the time, inshallah, bi'idhnillah. In my room here, I don't have a clock. So Sayyid Taha, if you want to make sure that you signal me, Sayyid Mira Hashmat, if you also want to signal me somehow, please do so. In case if I get carried away and I take you all till Fajr time, no, inshallah I won't. But one of the companions I wanted to talk about today was Salman. Salman, whose actual birth name, and Salman was from Iran, from Persia, and being an Iranian, his actual name was Ruzbeh, which some translators from the Farsi have called it a good day. You meet each other, Ruze Tumbakhair, Ruze Khair, but Ruze Bah is a shortened version of good day, or nice day, a good day, what have you. So that's what he was born into, Salman, and he was born into a Zoroastrian family, a Zoroastrian community, Zoroastrian culture. And while he was, as he was growing up, he became the fire guardian. Excuse me, sorry. He became a fire guardian, and that was a very important and a prestigious position. His father was also one of them, and he actually then graduated to be one of those as well, a fire protector, the protector of the fire, which was a very, very reputable, very respectful position, very, very a well-respected job. And yet, in this process, something was bothering him inside, something that this is not right, this is not real, this is not the haqq. And so sometime later, as he was growing up, he came across some Christian families or personalities. And when he was talking to them, and they talked about the message of Hazrat Isa alayhi salam, peace be upon him, and they talked to him about the the revelation and what have you, and of course the monotheistic faith, Hazrat Salman or Ruzbeh decided to follow them. And his father was not very happy, but what ended up happening is with the family actually ended up putting him in jail. They put him incarcerated him, and they said, this is not the right path, this is not for you, you shouldn't have even been talking to those people. But still his heart was there. He managed to somehow escape from that prison, and he went away from this area in Iran that he was in. Some have said that he was in Isfahan. Some have said in Mazandaran. Different places have been noted as to where he was, from originally, and his tribe or his family. Okay, the important thing is that he made his way to the Arabian Peninsula. And of course, this was a lengthy battle, lengthy journey, lengthy, basically spiritual growth for Salman. Eventually, he found out that there is somebody who is claiming to be a prophet. And this person is known as Muhammad ibn Abdullah. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad. So he decided to go and find out and talk to the Prophet, have some words with him, and ended up becoming one of the most loyal followers of the Holy Prophet of Islam. And in fact, Salman, he was also very intelligent. This is something we don't equate with the early Muslims. They were very smart, they were very sincere, loyal, smart. And so, he was amongst these early Muslims and loyal, diehard Muslims, who also was a follower of Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam, who stayed close to Ali Muhammad alayhi salam. And as a result of his intelligence in the Battle of Khandaq, the whole idea of Khandaq was actually suggested by Salman. And so Salman basically suggested them to dig a trench, a Khandaq, and that would keep the enemies at bay, and it would keep the Muslims protected, and the enemies would not be able to come unless they are equipped the way the Muslims had already kept themselves equipped. So one of the things that had happened afterward was that there was a discussion. Some historians have written there was a heated discussion, but there was a discussion amongst the Muhajir and the Ansar. The Muhajir, who had migrated from Makkah to Medina, and the Ansar were the ones who had helped them when they were in the city of Medina. So there was a debate that, is Salman from us or is he from them? And some historians have said that this was a discussion that was taking place. Some historians have recorded this in a different way. Some Muhajirs were saying that no, Salman is from us. And the Ansar were saying, no, Salman is from us. There was this debate going on. And as the Prophet came by, then there was the Prophet's statement that Salman is actually from me. And some have narrated this in a slightly different way, that there was in the Arabian Peninsula, there was a lot of pride as to who they were, their lineage, their ancestors, their parental lineage. So they would sit down and have these conversations though, that, oh, I am the son of so and so, I am the son of so and so, I'm the grandson of so and so. And so, maybe to humiliate, because they also had this superiority complex. Arab and Ajam, Ajam means somebody who doesn't even know how to talk. So some of those Arabs at the time had such a superiority complex that anybody who didn't speak Arabic or whose first tongue, mother tongue, was not Arabic, they would actually say that he was Ajam. He did not even know how to talk, how to speak. Okay, so they were talking about their own lineages, and then they, sarcastically looked at Salman. So, what's your lineage, Salman? And just then the Prophet came by, and the Prophet said, Salman minna Ahl al-Bayt. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala. Salman is from my Ahl al-Bayt. You're talking about your lineage and your parental this and your parental ancestors. Salman is from me, from my family, from my people of the house. So imagine how important of a role, a status, a position Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam gave to somebody as simple as Salman. Salman also went on to become the first translator of the Holy Quran into another language, into Persian, into Farsi. So, the Quran Majid was revealed in Arabic, and it was, of course, maintained in Arabic, but he was the first one to actually translate it and explain it to the non-Arabic people, the Iranian, the Persian-speaking people. So he was the first one to have actually done that. And the Prophet had kept him, very close to him, had taught him many of the secrets, had told him and trusted him with a number of things, as did Amir al-Mu'mineen, after the Holy Prophet as well. In fact, there have been narrations that Salman was told that he was at the highest level, of Iman. So his faith, despite his own upbringing and challenges that he had, he acquired himself, he disciplined himself, he made himself so much better that the Prophet raised him to that level of the 10th level of Iman, the highest level of Iman that any normal person would have been able to reach. So what I wanted to say at this time was that the Prophet trusted Salman. Salman was an ordinary person, but he developed himself. He worked on his taqwa. And these are spiritual exercises that our ulama, the urafa, our scholars, and of course, right, going back to the Ahlul Bayt alayhim assalam, have encouraged us to do, to develop our iman, our taqwa, our spiritual status, that we are constantly striving to get higher and higher. And this is one of the reasons why Hazrat Marhum Ayatullah al-Uzma Sheikh al-Arifin, Ayatullah Muhammad Taqi Bahjat, Allah maqamahu, has been quoted as saying that when you sincerely dedicate yourself to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you will see things that others cannot see. You will hear things that others cannot hear. Allah. And imagine, people like Salman and Maitham, Tamar, and others, they had that inside them, that sense within them to want to be better, want to get closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and follow Rasulullah's commands and dictates to the letter. This is important. So this is what I wanted to just give you a very brief highlight of Salman. Of course, Salman later went on to become a governor under Amir al-Mu'mineen's time. Or some have said actually even in Rasulullah's time he was already a governor. So a very pious man, very dedicated, very intelligent person who made sure he worked his spiritual status all the way to where the Prophet and Amir al-Mu'mineen had elevated him to. I wanted to talk about one other person today, and while they are not a companion, it'll come as a little bit of a surprise that it is a lady that I will talk about. And this is Sayyida Nafisa. She was actually born in the 700th year of the 700 AD. So you can say approximately the 2nd century of the Hijri calendar. Okay, now, give or take. I don't remember the exact date. But Sayyida Nafisa was actually a great-great-granddaughter of Imam Hassan Mujtaba alayhi salatu wasalam. And she had married, her husband his name was Ishaq, and Ishaq was actually a descendant of Abu Abdullah al-Hussein alayhi salam. So obviously, she had a connection to the Ahlul, but she herself was not what we say as a ma'asum or a ma'asuma. But again, what I mentioned is that the jihad is there, the effort has to be there, because not everybody had reached this level. You remember, the Prophet had, through Hazrat Fatima Zahra salamullahi alayha, and as the chain of imamat continued. Each imam had various children, and each child had various children. So not all of them had reached the status of Sayyidah Nafisa, as I will mention in a few minutes, or Masumai Kum, or others who are at that level that we respect them so greatly. Hazrat Abbas, being the son of Amirul Mu'mineen, was not himself Masum, but he was no less than in his taqwa than those who were around him. Same thing with Hazrat Zainab Kubra, Zainab Sughra, Kulthum alayhim as-salam, peace be upon them all. So what we can see is that Sayyidah Nafisa had come significantly years after that. But because of her iman and her taqwa, she was already an alima. When she was very young, her father was the governor of Egypt, of Misr. And so she used to do Salatul Jamaat at the age of 6. The historians say at the age of 6, she used to already do Namaz Jamaat, Salatul Jamaat behind her father. And at an early age, she learned the principles of fiqh and usul. She actually went on to become an alima of such caliber that people from far and wide would come and have discussions with her, have engaged in mubahitha conversations, and ascertaining different aspects of fiqh. So much so that one of the great imams of the Ahl Sunnah wal Jamaat, Imam Shafiq, was actually a student of hers. Imam Shafi was a student of Sayyidah Nafisa. Can you imagine? I mean, being a man was difficult enough. An alim for a male, she made herself, developed herself, her iman, her taqwa, and her aqidah in such a way that she was an alima, a level at which Imam Shafi was learning from her. Imam Shafi was a student of Malik ibn Anas. Imam Malik, whom the Malikis follow. Imam Shafi is the Imam of the Shafis. He was a student also of Imam Malik ibn Anas. Imam Malik was a student of Abu Hanifa, and Imam Abu Hanifa was a student of Imam Ja'far ibn Muhammad al-Sadiq alayhi salatu wassalam. So Imam Shafi learned from Sayyidah Nafisa, so much so that he actually mentioned that my Salatul Janaza, my Namaz Mayyat, when he was reaching his endpoint, he quickly wrote down his will that my Namaz Janaza, my Namaz Mayyat will be led by Sayyidah Nafisa. You can imagine, my sisters, please, if you get time, do some research, do some reading. There are books available. Some of them have been translated into the English language as well. Study the life of Hazrat Nafisa, because not only in her lifetime was she such a miraculous lady that there are miracles I'm going to talk about, inshallah, but even after her death, she was, illuminating people. And when she was wanting her niece Zainab, actually once went to her and says that I've noticed you're spending so much time in ibadat, answering the people's problems, listening to them, serving them, and doing your ibadat. You're not taking care of yourself, because it was narrated that Hazrat Nafisa said that Nafisa would not even eat every day. Sometimes she'd be fasting. Even if she was not fasting, her food intake, she would eat every second day, for example. So her niece Zainab comes to her and says, Auntie, you're not taking care of yourself. And her reply, Allahu Akbar, my dear sisters and my brothers, please listen attentively and carefully. Her reply was that, how can I take care of myself when I have not done anything, and there are people who have already gone ahead, and there are many, many obstacles that are coming. There are many barriers coming. Imagine if we were to think like that. We just take it for granted. We're Muslims. We're all going to go to Jannah. We've got the passport and the visa for paradise. No. It's not like that, sisters and brothers. If somebody who's at the level and her piety was such that she spent so much time in the worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that when a time had come that she wanted to migrate from Misr, from Cairo, Al-Qahira, from Cairo back to Medina, throngs of people came to her and appealed to her, beseeched her that please don't leave Cairo, please stay here, please stay here. And she says, no, I'm not getting time. I'm not getting time to worship Allah enough. And people are coming here, the ulama, she was an alima, she was a faqiha, a jurisprudence, she was an alim, a scholar, she was Allahu Akbar, and an abida. Many ladies would come to her and just touch her to get barakah. and they would be blessed, and they would have so much success after that. And even till today, that is the case. I'll explain in a minute. It was such a big deal to the people of Egypt, her wanting to migrate back, that they actually went to the governor of Egypt, Asirra. And they went to Sarah and they told him that, can you please ask Sayyidina Nafisa to remain in Cairo? He actually himself came and very respectfully sat down and addressed Sayyidina Nafisa and said that, please do not leave us. Do not leave the city of Cairo, for you are the blessing of Al-Qahira, of Cairo. She humbly and politely said that, you saw my house. You see my house. It is very small. People are coming and they have to stay outside. They have to wait outside, and I cannot entertain so many people. I cannot respond to and respectfully give time. The governor of Egypt actually said, I have a mansion, my personal mansion. It is significantly larger than anything else you have. I am going to give that to you as a gift. The only request I have is that you stay in Cairo. This is your gift. You attend to the people. This is a huge house, and nobody will be waiting or standing outside. It's a huge house. And he was also, her other point was that I'm not able to worship Allah the way I want to. And the governor suggested one thing to her. Some say that the governor suggested something, some say that others had suggested. They said only on Sundays and Wednesdays you receive the people. The remaining days you do your ibadat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Finally, after all this pressure and all this request and from this intercession of the governor himself, she decided to stay there. She accepted the gift. She thought about it. She accepted the gift. She said, I'm only doing this for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, so that the people who are coming to me do not become inconvenienced. And so she decided to stay in. And it was narrated, and I had mentioned about her piety and her taqwa. Her taqwa was such, her piety was such, that oftentimes people would, like I said, just come to her, touch her, and like the ladies, of course, would touch her and just get barakah and blessings from her and leave. They would not even say anything. There's this one non-Muslim lady. She had a paralyzed daughter, a daughter who could not move at all. She brought the daughter to Sayyidina Nafisa. She goes, I need to go shopping. Can you just look after my daughter? And this was common custom, not like, like today where you can leave your child at somebody's house. Sadly, there are things that happen that, should not happen. But of course, in the old days, people used to trust each other, the neighbors, the community elders, community, muttaqiyans. So this non-Muslim lady brought her to a paralyzed daughter who could not move at all. And she said that I just need to go get some groceries. I need to go do some shopping. Can you please look after my daughter? So then Nafisa said, Bismillah, inshallah. And in the meantime, the time for Salat was coming. So the daughter was paralyzed. She could not move. So she said that Nafisa had gone to do wudu. When she came back from her wudu, a few droplets of the water of the wudu from Sayyidina Nafisa fell on this little young girl. When it fell on this young girl, sometime later, as Hazrat Sayyidina Nafisa was doing her salat, this girl started moving. When the mother of the girl came back to the house and Sayyidina Nafisa was doing her salat, was doing her namaz, this daughter runs to her mother and embraces her. There is complete shock in the family. Because what happened here? What is this? And not only the girl's family, but the entire neighborhood where this girl was, where they were all non-Muslims, they all came to say that Nafisa and accepted Islam at her hand. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. There are numerous miracles like this. But as I said, a part of your homework I will give you today, inshallah, is to do a little bit of research and reading on Sayyidina Nafisa, inshallah. And her grave actually is in Cairo. And by the grace of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, I've had an opportunity to visit that area. And that area is referred to as Sayyidina Nafisa. And the street is, Share Ahlul Bayt, the road of Ahlul Bayt. And of course, Sayyidina Zainab is not far from there. Sayyidina Ruqayya is not far from there. Ras al-Hussein is not far from there. Al-Azhar is also on the other side there. So all this is in Cairo. As you will remember, Cairo used to be completely Shia, like the whole of Egypt was completely Shia. And we had some great people like Muhammad ibn Abu Bakr, who had served as the governor, Malik Ashtar, who had served as the governor, This is take me on a separate topic altogether. But say the Nafisa's grave, shrine, haram is in Cairo till today. And one of the things that the miracle that I mentioned, that some had happened while in her lifetime, some had even happened after her death. And that is, one time some thieves came and stole 17 silver lamps from her haram, from the masjid, because it's also masjid there, said the Nafisa. So the haram, the shrine is there, and this is also masjid. So they came in here, these thieves, and they stole 17 lamps. As they stole those lamps, all of a sudden they could not find the door to get out. The door could not be found. There was no door. They went round and round and round. There was no door to escape from, to go from. They ended up sleeping the night there because they couldn't get out. And the next day, the authorities came. They found them, and they saw that these people were planning on stealing them. So they were, arrested and incarcerated. So the miracles of Sayyidina Nafisa are around even till today. Even till today, people, and I have seen with my own eyes, people who have gone to her grave for barakah, to her shrine in her area, in the masjid, during this pandemic time. Different harams, not only in Iran and Iraq and in Medina and other places, were shut, but even in Egypt, they were closed for some time also. Some of them are still closed, including Sayyidah Zainab. But and people will still go there, even just to the door, to say assalamu alayki to her, and they refer to her as bint Rasulullah, although it was many generations later. But you can see that the blessings and the barakah is still obtained even after their death. And this is somebody who was not a member of the Ahlul Bayt, not a member of the Masumin, but somebody who had developed her own taqwa and iman. A very pious lady, a great lady, who was known for her, her simpleness, her God-fearingness, who would not, speak unnecessarily, would not do anything without, a cause. And this was one of those pious ladies who was a true noble follower of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. As I mentioned, Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. As I mentioned, the Quran Majid, refers to the Holy Prophet in such a way that those who are the loyal followers will get example from just the titles of Rasulullah from the Holy Quran. And I will close today's discussion with this the verse that I started with, وَمَا أَرْسَلْنَاكَ إِلَّا مُبَشِّرًا وَنَذِيرًا, that, O Muhammad, we have not sent you except as a giver of good news, illa mubashiran wa nadhira, and as a warner. You have to warn the people what will come, and you will give them good news. The good news of course, the pleasure of Allah and going into paradise. Wa nadhira, your warning is to be, careful and cautious of the fire of hell and the displeasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So with that, inshallah, I once again extend congratulations on this month that we have been celebrating the birth anniversary of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and Imam Jafar as-Sadiq alayhi salatu wasalam. I extend congratulations and felicitations to all of you, your families. May Allah Ta'ala accept our amal, accept our ibadat, accept our happiness for the sake of Muhammad and Ali Muhammad alayhi salam, and inshallah keep us on the right path. As my dear Sayyid Taha has already done the ayah karima for those who are ill, so I will not repeat that, inshallah. I will request the mu'minin to just end with one recitation of Surah Fatiha, followed by 3 times Surah Tawheed for the marhumin who are no longer with us, especially for those for whom there is nobody to recite Fatiha. Al-Fatiha ma'as salawat. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alamin. Ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Malik yawm al-din. Iyaka na'budu wa iyaka nasta'in. Ihdina as-sirata al-mustaqim. صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد. اللهم صل على محمد وعلى محمد. جزاكم الله خير والسلام عليكم جميعا ورحمة الله وبركاته.
Alhamdulillah. May Allah bless you, my dear Sheikh, and inshallah keep you and your loved ones and inshallah all the members of the community safe and well especially during this time. And may Allah increase your tawfiqat and that you continue to serve the Ahlul Bayt, the Prophet Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam. Alhamdulillah, we were able to hold this gathering, be it virtually, and inshallah we pray that Allah relieves us from this difficult time, as our dear respected Sheikh said. And now we will conclude this majlis, this gathering, with the recitation of Ziyarat al-Warith by our respected Dr. Muhammad Alwan. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
على محمد وآل محمد.
Thank you very much, dear brother Sayyid Taha. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. السلام عليك يا وارث آدم صفوة الله. السلام عليك يا وارث نوح نبي الله. السلام عليك يا وارث إبراهيم خليل الله. السلام عليك يا وارث موسى كليم الله. السلام عليك يا وارث عيسى روح الله. السلام عليك يا وارث محمد حبيب الله. السلام عليك يا وارث أمير المؤمنين ولي الله. السلام عليك يا ابن محمد المصطفى. السلام عليك يا ابن علي المرتضى. السلام عليك يا ابن فاطمة الزهراء. السلام عليك يا ابن خديجة الكبرى. السلام عليك يا ثار الله وابن ثاره والوتر الموتور. أشهد أنك قد أقمت الصلاة وآتيت الزكاة وأمرت بالمعروف ونهيت عن المنكر وأطعت الله ورسوله حتى أتاك اليقين. فلعن الله أمة قتلتك ولعن الله أمة ظلمت ولعن الله أمة سمعت بذلك فرضيت به. يا مولاي يا أبا عبد الله، أشهد أنك كنت نورا في الأصلاب الشامخة والأرحام المطهرة، لم تنجسك الجاهلية بأنجاسها ولم تلبسك من ملهمات ثيابها. وأشهد أنك من دعائم الدين وأركان المؤمنين. وأشهد أنك الإمام البر التقي الرضي الزكي الهادي المهدي. وأشهد أن الأئمة من ولدك كلمة التقوى وأعلام الهدى والعروة الوثقى والحجة على أهل الدنيا. وأشهد الله وملائكته وأنبياءه ورسله إني بكم مؤمن وبإيابكم موقن بشرائع ديني وخواتيم عملي. وقلبي لقلبكم سلم وأمري لأمركم متبع. صلوات الله عليكم وعلى وعلى أرواحكم وعلى أجسادكم وعلى أجسامكم وعلى شاهدكم وعلى غائبكم وعلى ظاهركم وعلى باطنكم. زيارة حضرة علي بن الحسين عليه السلام. السلام عليك يا ابن رسول الله. السلام عليك يا ابن نبي الله. السلام عليك يا ابن أمير المؤمنين. السلام عليك يا ابن الحسين الشهيد. السلام عليك أيها الشهيد. السلام عليك أيها المظلوم وابن المظلوم. لعن الله أمة قتلت ولعن الله أمة ظلمت ولعن الله أمة سمعت بذلك فرضيت به. زيارة شهداء كربلاء. السلام عليكم يا أولياء الله وأحباءه. السلام عليكم يا أصفياء الله وأود الشهداء. السلام عليكم يا أنصار دين الله. السلام عليكم يا أنصار رسول الله. السلام عليكم يا أنصار أمير المؤمنين. السلام عليكم يا أنصار فاطمة سيدتي نساء العالمين. السلام عليكم يا أنصار أبي محمد الحسن بن علي الولي الزكي الناصح. السلام عليكم يا أنصار أبي عبد الله. بأبي أنتم وأمي طبتم وطابت الأرض التي فيها دفنتم وفزتم فوزا عظيما. فيا ليتني كنت معكم فأفوز معكم. زيارة حضرة العباس بن علي. السلام عليك يا أبا الفضل العباس ابن أمير المؤمنين. السلام عليك يا ابن سيد الوصيين. السلام عليك يا ابن أول القوم إسلاما وأقدمهم إيمانا وأقومهم بدين الله وأحوطهم على الإسلام. أشهد لقد نصحت لله ولرسوله ولأخيه. فنعم الأخ المواسي. فلعن الله أمة قتلت ولعن الله أمة ظلمت ولعن الله أمة استحلت منك المحارم وانتهكت حرمة الإسلام. فنعم الصابر المجاهد المحامي الناصر والأخ الدافع عن أخيه المجيب إلى طاعة ربه الراغب فيما زهد فيه غيره من الثواب الجزيل والثناء الجميل. وألحقك الله بدرجة آبائك في جنات النعيم. دعاء الحج عليه السلام. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اللهم كن لوليك الحجة ابن الحسن صلواتك عليه وعلى آبائه في هذه الساعة وفي كل ساعة وليا وحافظا وقائدا وناصرا ودليلا وعينا حتى تسكنه أرضك طوعا وتمتعه فيها طويلا برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. وصلى الله على محمد وآله الطيبين الطاهرين. الفاتحة.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم. Thank you very much, dear Dr. Muhammad, and alhamdulillah, be it virtually, but we are able to connect with our brothers and especially our respected Dr. Muhammad Al-Wan, that we're able to hear him recite. May Allah have mercy on his beautiful voice, and that Allah help fulfill his legitimate desires and the legitimate desires of all our dear brothers and sisters in the community. And inshallah, as we understand that there might be several brothers and sisters who may have been physically present in Waterloo, but they are in other parts of the world. May Allah bestow them success in all their endeavors in this world and the hereafter. And those who are not, who are no longer in this world, who have left this temporal world, may Allah have mercy on their souls. And inshallah, we pray, ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that grant them the highest stations. So brothers and sisters, with this we will conclude today's gathering. And sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.